Okay, so the rotor can't come off until the caliper comes off. And the caliper doesn't come off until these brake shoes come off. But just to show you on the rotor, there's a Phillips screw here and one there. Each rotor has 2 Phillips screws, and those had to be removed. And I have already loosened them, so they're all ready to come off there. Also on the rear, which we are now, the parking brake must be released or you'll never get that rotor off. All right, to get the pads out, this wire is the brake sensor wire. It's an electrical thing, and each pad has a little sensor in it. And if that sensor wears through, then your brake light comes on to tell you that you need to replace your pads. So the first thing to do is remove these very easily. And I just use, very carefully, because it has a plastic retainer, a little screwdriver to pry that thing up right there. So let me do that now. Just want to barely get it started out of there. Okay, there. So there's a little metal contact that will wear through when the pad wears too thin. All right, and then you remove it from this retainer clip here. And then there's the same thing here on the other pad, right in there. Okay, I got that one out of there. It was trickier because you have to do it kind of blind from the back side of this a little bit. I also used some liquid wrench to help loosen it up. Since we're replacing all the brake parts, it's okay to get a little liquid wrench on some stuff. And then the cable comes out of that little clip right there on the pad. So this sensor wire is now free. The next thing to do is to take out the pads. There's a pin bolt. So we're going to pull that retaining pin out of there. Okay, and now I think I have to hammer that pin out of there gently. I found this 1/4 inch extension to be handy to drive the pin at least that far. Now pulling this thing out of here, it has tension of this retainer clip on it. So when I pull this out of here, it's probably gonna, that clip is probably gonna spring loose. Let's see. Yes, that's what it did. And there's the retainer clip. You'll need to reuse that or replace it in bad shape, but hopefully we're good. I think this looks good. I'll clean it up a little bit. The pads should come out. Well, this one still has the pin. I need to drive it a little more with something longer than that. But this one should come out pretty easily now. I'm going to try like this. Yep, there we go. And then I'll pry off that one. So there is one pad. Also remember which pad is which because they have different notches, I think. So this is the outside pad. Just going to put it down like that. So here we are with both pads removed. The pin, the retainer pin for the pin, spring clip, and this will just stay out of the way. Next thing to do is to take off these 2 female 10mm bolts to remove the caliper. I was about to remove the final, the second of 2 of these caliper bolts, and I was going to by hand swing this caliper up and see if I could rest it somewhere because of the flexible line. Well, before I started to do that, I realized that's not going to work at all because that rigid hydraulic line right there, from there to right there, is on a hard mounted bracket 10mm bolt. If I don't remove that bracket from that suspension member, then when this caliper comes loose, it will twist and probably break or crimp that solid piece of line right there. So there's zero flexibility to move that caliper until you remove that bracket. Also, I noted that this sensor wire is clipped to that hydraulic line with a retainer clip, and it's kind of tight on the other side, so I don't want to take this whole assembly loose and risk damaging this electrical connection, so I'm going to undo that clip and get this electrical wire completely out of the way. Now with the retainer clip loose, it actually is loose, but it's not moving again because it's on that rigid line and this is still connected. I'm going to take this bolt out and try to rest that caliper. This line should flex. I'm going to try to rest the caliper on this arm out of the way, see how that goes. This should work quite well if you're careful. Just move it on in there a little bit and set it down. Should rest somewhere. There we go. Yeah, that'll be fine. Now we can work on pulling the rotor off. I actually used a ratchet with a Phillips bit on a 1/4-inch socket to crack these things loose, these two Phillips, but I was very careful not to break the bolt. It just happened to come out quite easily on all 4 corners actually. If it didn't come out easily, I would heat it with the torch and then see how it goes. But since they're cracked loose now, I can just use a hand dryer to get these 2 screws out. They're just short little retainer screws. Put them with the rest of the stuff. Okay, now the parking brake is released, which means the little horseshoe brake pads inside here are not holding onto this metal. So I'm going to try to pull this off by hand now and see how it goes. Well, it came loose really easily. So there is that one. I don't normally set them down on their surface, but we're not reusing that one, so it's fine. Now is the time to inspect the parking brake. Looks like it has plenty of material, evenly worn. Shouldn't have any wear at all, really. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Springs look good. Okay, so I think installation is the reverse of removal.